In the quiet village of Duru, there lived a girl named Obiora. She was as beautiful as the sunrise, with a gentle heart that made her the talk of the village. Men would often ask for her hand in marriage, but she always declined with a soft smile, saying she wasn't ready. Despite her kindness, Obiora kept her life private. No one knew where she lived, as she always arrived at the market early and left before dusk. Villagers whispered in curiosity, wondering about the mysterious girl who came and went like a breeze. One day, a handsome man named Amika arrived at the market, looking for fresh produce. When he saw Obiora, he was struck by her beauty and couldn't take his eyes off her. Amika approached her and introduced himself with a smile. "Hello, I'm Amika. What's your name?" Obiora smiled softly and replied, "I'm Obiora." They chatted about the weather and the village, and Amika was captivated by her gentle voice and kind smile. He began visiting the market every day, hoping to see her, and slowly their friendship grew. One evening, as the market was closing, Amika noticed it was getting late. Concerned for Obiora's safety, he offered to walk her home, saying, "It's not safe to go alone in the dark." Obiora hesitated, but eventually agreed. As they walked, the sky grew darker, and the air became chilly. Suddenly, Amika felt a cold hand touch his back. He turned around, but no one was there. Fear gripped him, and he looked at Obiora, who seemed calm, walking ahead. Amika decided to turn back, too frightened to continue. After that eerie night, Amika never returned to the market to see Obiora again. The memory of the cold hand haunted him, and he couldn't shake the fear it brought. Obiora, saddened by his absence, continued her life quietly in the village. She had always been cautious about getting too close to anyone, knowing that she had a secret to protect. Obiora wasn't just an ordinary girl. She was from the deep magical forest beyond Duru, where her family lived. They were not human, but creatures with the ability to take different forms. Obiora's family had always warned her to stay away from humans. "You must not marry a human. Our world and theirs are too different," they told her. But when Amika began visiting her, parents grew worried. They didn't want her to fall in love with him, so they decided to scare him away. The cold hand that Amika felt was their doing, a trick to keep him away from Obiora. Though Obiora liked Amika, she knew her family's warnings were serious. She felt trapped between her desire for a normal life and the bonds of her family. Obiora longed for freedom and the chance to make her own choices. Tired of living under her family's control, she made a bold decision. She would leave the forest and stay in Duru village. One day she went deep into the forest to say goodbye to her family. With a heavy heart, she told them, "I love you, but I want to live my own life. I want to be free." Parents were saddened but understood her wish. They warned her one last time, "Be careful, Obiora. The world outside can be harsh." Obiora moved to Duru village for good, hoping to find happiness and maybe even love. She continued to sell her goods in the market, keeping her past a secret. The villagers only knew her as the beautiful and kind girl from the market, unaware of the magical world she had left behind. Despite the challenges, Obiora felt a sense of freedom she had never experienced before. She hoped that in this new life, she could finally find a place where she belonged, away from the shadows of her family's world. Obiora knew that she needed to break all ties with her family to ensure she wouldn't be drawn back into their world. To do this, she decided to visit the shrine of Obiora, a powerful spirit known for helping those who sought a different path in life. Obiora walked to the shrine and knelt before the altar. "Great Obiora," she spoke softly but with determination, "I wish to sever all connections with my family. I want to live freely in Duru village, away from their control." Obiora listened and nodded, understanding her wish. Obiora granted Obiora's wish to sever the bond with her family but warned her, "Your family will not be happy. They may try to curse you to bring you back." Obiora, with a brave heart, nodded and said, "I understand. I still want to go through with it." With a gentle wave of Obiri's hand, the bond between Obiora and her family was cut. However, true to Obiri's warning, when her family realized they had lost their connection to Obiora, they were furious. In their anger and sorrow, they laid a curse on her. The curse placed on Obiora was simple, yet terrifying. She would transform into a snake every night, unable to control the change. During the day, she would be her usual self, but at night she would become a serpent, forced to slither through the darkness until dawn. Despite the curse, Obiora remained determined to live in Duru village. She found an old, abandoned hut on the outskirts of the village, where she could hide at night. She made it her home, living in fear that someone might discover her secret. Obiora's life became a cycle of fear and caution. By day, she lived as a normal villager, kind and helpful to everyone she met. But as dusk approached, she hurried to her secluded hut, dreading the transformation. She would lock herself inside, feeling the painful shift from human to snake. She was terrified someone might find her, but her determination to stay in Duru kept her strong. Despite the curse, Obiora held on to the hope that one day she would be free from it and live a normal life. Weeks passed, and Obiora continued her dual life. During the day, she became well known in the village for her kindness and beauty. Many men admired her, but she kept them at a distance, afraid of what might happen if they got too close. At night, she endured the curse alone, transforming into a snake and slithering through the darkness until dawn. The villagers began to notice her strange habits, how she disappeared every evening and never stayed out late. They whispered among themselves, but no one dared to ask her about it. One day, a wealthy merchant named Chidubem arrived in Duru village. He was known for his charm and generosity, and it wasn't long before he caught sight of Obiora. Struck by her beauty and grace, Chidubem decided he would win her heart. He approached her at the market, offering to buy all her goods, but Obiora politely refused. "Thank you, but I must earn my way," she said with a gentle smile. Chidubem was intrigued by her humility and began visiting the market daily, determined to learn more about the mysterious girl who had captured his interest. Chidubem's persistence began to wear down Obiora's defenses. She found herself enjoying his visits and the conversations they shared. He was kind, funny, and thoughtful. And soon, Obiora began to look forward to seeing him each day. But every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she felt a pang of fear. She couldn't let Chidubem get too close. He could never know her secret. Despite her growing feelings for him, Obiora kept her distance, knowing that her curse would ruin any chance of happiness with him. As time passed, Chidubem's feelings for Obiora deepened. He was captivated by her beauty and kindness, and decided to propose marriage. One day he approached her stall with a bouquet of wildflowers and said, "Obiora, you've stolen my heart. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Obiora's heart raced, and for a moment she imagined a life with him, free from her curse. But reality quickly set in, and she realized it could never be. With tears in her eyes, she whispered, "I can't, Chidubem. There are things about me you don't know." Chidubem was confused by Obiora's refusal and begged her to explain. "What is it, Obiora? Why can't we be together?" But Obiora couldn't bring herself to tell him the truth. Instead, she ran away from the market, leaving Chidubem standing alone, heartbroken and confused. She hurried back to her hut, locking herself inside as the sun set. That night, as she transformed into a snake, Obiora cried, feeling the weight of her curse more than ever. She knew she couldn't keep running forever, but she was terrified of what would happen if Chidubem discovered the truth. Days passed, and Obiora avoided Chidubem, too ashamed to face him. But Chidubem was determined to find out what was troubling her. He visited her stall every day, waiting for her, but she never appeared. Villagers noticed her absence and began to gossip, wondering if something had happened to the beautiful market. Chidubem's concern grew, and he decided to search for her. He asked around the village, but no one knew where she lived. Determined, he set out on a quest to find Obiora, convinced that something was terribly wrong. Chidubem's search led him to the outskirts of the village, where he found the old, abandoned hut. He knocked on the door, calling out Obiora's name, but there was no answer. As the sun began to set, Chidubem felt a chill in the air. He decided to wait outside, hoping she would return. Night fell, and the moon rose high in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the hut. Suddenly, he heard a rustling sound from inside. Chidubem's heart raced as he cautiously approached the door, determined to find out what was happening. Inside the hut, Obiora had already transformed into a snake. She heard Chidubem outside and froze in fear. She knew she couldn't let him see her like that. But Chidubem, concerned for her safety, slowly opened the door. The sight that met him was beyond anything he could have imagined. There, in the middle of the hut, was a large, beautiful snake with eyes that seemed to reflect deep sorrow. Chidubem stepped back in shock, his mind racing. He realized that this was Obiora's secret. She was the snake. But instead of fear, he felt a deep sadness for her. Chidubem slowly approached the snake, his heart aching for Obiora. "Obiora," he whispered, "I know this is you. I don't understand what happened, but I won't leave you like this." The snake looked up at him, its eyes filled with tears. Chidubem knelt beside the creature, gently reaching out to touch its head. To his surprise, the snake didn't recoil, but instead leaned into his touch. In that moment, Chidubem realized that his love for Obiora hadn't changed. He still cared for her deeply, no matter her fear. He vowed to find a way to break the curse. Chidubem spent the night in the hut, staying by Obiora's side until dawn. As the first light of day broke through the windows, the snake began to change. Chidubem watched in awe as the serpent slowly transformed back into Obiora. She lay on the floor, exhausted and trembling, her eyes filled with fear and shame. Chidubem quickly covered her with a blanket, speaking soothing words to calm her. "You're safe now, Obiora," he said gently. "We'll find a way to break this curse." Obiora looked at him with gratitude, her heart swelling with a glimmer of hope. The next day, Chidubem took Obiora to his home, insisting that she stay with him until they could find a way to break the curse. He explained everything to her in-laws, who were shocked but sympathetic. They agreed to keep her secret safe, understanding the gravity of the situation. Obiora was grateful for their kindness, but remained fearful of what might happen if the truth were to spread. Chidubem reassured her, promising to protect her, no matter what. He began searching for anyone who might know how to break the curse, determined to free Obiora from her suffering. Days turned into weeks as Chidubem searched for a solution. He visited healers, shamans, and wise elders in nearby villages, asking for their help. Some had heard of similar curses, but none knew how to break them. Despite the lack of answers, Chidubem refused to give up. Meanwhile, Obiora tried to live as normally as possible, helping Chidubem's family with daily tasks. She found some comfort in the routine, but the fear of transforming each night weighed heavily on her. She longed for the day when she could be free from the curse and live a normal life. One evening while Chidubem was away searching for more answers, Obiora sat alone in his home, feeling hopeless. She wondered if she would ever be free or if she was doomed to live with the curse forever. Just as despair began to overwhelm her, an old woman knocked on the door. "I've come to help," the woman said, her voice soft but Obiora hesitated, unsure whether to trust her. Something in the woman's eyes told her that she might be the one who could finally bring an end to the curse. With a nod, Obiora invited her inside. The old woman introduced herself as Mama Nkosi, a powerful shaman who had lived for over a century. "I know of your curse, child," she said, "and I believe I can help you break it, but the path will not be easy." Obiora listened intently as Mama Nkosi explained that the curse could only be broken by an act of true selflessness, one that would prove Obiora's purity of heart. You must be willing to sacrifice something precious to you, Mama Nkosi warned. Obiora felt a chill run down her spine, but she knew she had to do whatever it took. Mama Nkosi gave Obiora a special talisman, telling her that it would guide her on her journey to break the curse. Follow its light, she instructed, and it will lead you to the place where you must make your sacrifice. Obiora took the talisman, feeling its warmth in her hand. Thank you, Mama Nkosi, she said, voice trembling with emotion. The old woman nodded and left, leaving Obiora alone with her thoughts. That night, as she transformed into a snake, Obiora held the talisman close, praying that it would lead her to freedom. The next morning, Obiora set out on her journey, guided by the light of the talisman. She walked for hours, through forests and across rivers, until she reached a clearing deep in the woods. In the center of the clearing stood a towering ancient tree, its branches reaching toward the sky. The talisman's light grew brighter as Obiora approached the tree. She knew this was the place where she had to make her sacrifice. With a heavy heart, she knelt before the tree, clutching the talisman tightly, and whispered a prayer for strength. Obiora knew that to break the curse, she had to offer something of great value. She thought about everything she held dear, and her mind kept returning to Chidubem. The love they shared was the most precious thing in her life, but she realized that to truly free herself, she might have to let him go. With tears streaming down her face, Obiora made her decision. She placed the talisman at the base of the tree and whispered, I offer my love for Chidubem, so that I may be free. As the words left her lips, the ground trembled beneath her. As the ground shook, powerful energy surged through the clearing. Talisman's light intensified, enveloping Obiora in a warm, golden glow. She felt the curse lifting from her body, the weight of the snake form dissipating. For the first time in years, she felt truly free. But the cost of her freedom was immediate. Obiora knew that her love for Chidubem would fade, and she would no longer remember the depth of their connection. The thought broke her heart, but she knew it was necessary. As the light faded, Obiora stood up, feeling lighter, yet deeply saddened. Obiora returned to the village, her heart heavy with the loss of her love for Chidubem. She felt an emptiness inside her. She was no longer burdened by the curse. When she arrived at Chidubem's home, she found him waiting for her. His eyes lit up when he saw her, but Obiora felt nothing. She smiled politely, trying to remember the feelings she once had, but it was as if they had vanished completely. Chidubem noticed the change in her demeanor and felt a pang of worry. Are you all right, Obiora? He asked gently, but she could only nod. Days passed, and Obiora tried to adjust to her new life, free from the curse. She continued to live with Chidubem, but the love she once felt for him had faded into a distant memory. She cared for him deeply, but it was no longer the same. Chidubem sensed the change, but didn't know how to help her. He often found himself reminiscing about the early days of their relationship, longing for the connection they once had. Despite his best efforts to rekindle the flame, Obiora remained distant, haunted by the sacrifice she had made to break the curse. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Chidubem gently took Obiora's hand. I know something is different, Obiora, he said softly, but I'm here for you, no matter what. Obiora looked into his eyes, trying to summon the love she once felt, but it was like grasping at smoke. I'm sorry, Chidubem, she whispered. I want to feel the same, but something inside me has changed. Chidubem's heart ached at her words, but he refused to give up on her. We'll find a way through this, he promised. But deep down, Obiora feared that their love was lost forever. As the months passed, Obiora found solace in helping others in the village. She spent her days caring for the sick, teaching the children, and assisting the elders. Her kindness and generosity earned her the respect and admiration of everyone in Duru. But despite her outward appearance of contentment, A deep loneliness gnawed at her heart. She missed the feeling of being truly loved, but she knew that her sacrifice had made that impossible. Chidubem continued to stand by her, but the distance between them only grew. Obiora began to wonder if she had made the right choice. One day, while Obiora was teaching the village children, she noticed a young girl standing alone, watching from a distance. The girl's eyes were filled with a familiar sadness, and Obiora felt an instant connection. He approached the girl and asked, "What's your name?" The girl hesitated before answering, "I'm Amina." Obiora smiled gently and invited her to join the other children. As the days went by, Obiora and Amina grew close. Amina reminded Obiora of herself when she was younger, and she felt a deep need to protect and care for the girl. For the first time in a long while, Obiora felt a sense of. Obiora spent more time with Amina. She began to see the world through the girl's eyes. Amina was curious, full of life, and unafraid to dream. She often spoke of her hopes for the future, and Obiora found herself drawn to the girl's optimism. One evening, as they sat by the river, Amina asked, "Obiora, do you believe in magic?" The question took Obiora by surprise, and for a moment she didn't know how to answer. But then she smiled and said, "Yes, Amina, I believe that magic is all around us, in the kindness we show others, and the love we give." As time passed, Amina became like a daughter to Obiora. The two were inseparable, and their bond brought a sense of joy and fulfillment to Obiora's life. Chidubem noticed the change in Obiora and felt a glimmer of hope. He saw how Amina had brought light back into Obiora's eyes and began to believe that perhaps they could still find happiness together. He suggested they adopt Amina, giving her a permanent place in their family. Obiora was touched by the idea, but a part of her hesitated, fearing that the curse might still haunt her and Amina's future. Obiora pondered Chidubem's suggestion of adopting Amina. She loved the girl deeply, but fear still clung to her heart. One night, as Obiora lay awake, she whispered a prayer to the spirits, asking for guidance. In the stillness of the night, she felt a gentle presence, as though a comforting hand was placed on her shoulder. A voice, soft yet firm, spoke within her. "Your heart knows the truth. Trust in your love, and let it guide you." With that, Obiora felt a peace she hadn't known in years, and she knew what she had to do. The next morning, Obiora spoke with Chidubem about her decision. "I want to adopt Amina," she said, voice steady. "She deserves a family, and I believe that we can give her a good life." Chidubem smiled, his heart swelling with love and admiration for Obiora. "I'm with you, Obiora," he said, taking her hand. "Together, we'll make a family with Amina." The couple shared a quiet moment of understanding, their bond deepening as they prepared to welcome Amina into their lives officially. Obiora and Chidubem shared the news with Amina, who was overjoyed at the thought of having a permanent family. The village gathered to celebrate the adoption, and Obiora felt a sense of belonging and purpose she had longed for. As she watched Amina dance with the other children, a smile spread across her face. For the first time since breaking the curse, Obiora felt a deep sense of happiness. She knew that, though her love for Chidubem was different, was still strong, and their new family would thrive. As time went on, Obiora and Chidubem embraced their roles as Amina's parent. They guided her, nurtured her, and watched with pride as she grew into a bright and capable young girl. Amina brought joy into their home, and though Obiora still felt the occasional pang of loss for the love she once had for Chidubem, she found solace in the love she now had for Amina. The village continued to respect and admire Obiora, not just for her kindness, but for the strength she had shown in overcoming her past. One day, a traveler came to the village with news of a powerful healer who could restore lost memories and emotions. The villagers buzzed with excitement, and Chidubem, ever hopeful, asked the traveler if the healer could help someone who had lost their love. The traveler nodded, saying, "This healer's powers are unmatched. If anyone can help, it is them. Chidubem felt a spark of hope reignite within him. He wanted to bring back the love Obiora once had for him, even if it meant traveling far and facing unknown challenges. Chidubem hesitated to tell Obiora about the healer. He feared raising her hopes only to have them dashed. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that he couldn't embark on this journey without her. One evening, as they sat together after Amina had gone to bed, Chidubem spoke. "There's something I need to tell you," he began, and as he explained about the healer, Obiora listened quietly. When he finished, she sighed, a mix of emotions swirling within her. "I don't know if I want to remember," she admitted. "But if you think it's worth trying, then I'll go with you." The next day, Obiora and Chidubem prepared for their journey to find the healer. Amina was left in the care of the village elders, who promised to look after her until they returned. As Obiora and Chidubem set out, the village gathered to wish them well. Obiora felt a mixture of hope and fear as they left the familiar surroundings of the village and ventured into the unknown. She couldn't help but wonder if this journey would truly restore what she had lost, or if it would only bring more pain. As they traveled, Obiora and Chidubem encountered various challenges. They crossed rivers, climbed mountains, and navigated dense forests. Along the way, they met other travelers, some of whom offered help, while others warned them of the dangers ahead. Despite the hardships, Obiora felt a growing sense of resolve. She began to remember the strength that had carried her through her previous trials. Chidubem, too, was reminded of the love and determination that had first drawn him to Obiora. Together, they pushed forward, their bond strengthening with each step. One evening, as they camped by a roaring fire, a wise old woman approached them. She had heard of their quest and offered them guidance. "The healer you seek is not far," she said, a voice crackling like the fire. "But know this, the journey you have taken is as important as the destination. Sometimes the answers you seek are not found in another, but within yourself." Obiora and Chidubem listened carefully, words echoing in their hearts. As the woman departed, they were left with much to ponder. The wise woman's words stayed with Obiora and Chidubem. As they continued their journey, they began to talk more openly about their fears and hopes, sharing stories of their past and dreams for the future. Obiora realized that while she might never regain her lost emotions, she could still create new ones. Chidubem, too, understood that love wasn't something that could be forced or reclaimed, something that had to be nurtured and grown. Together, they decided that no matter what they found at the healer's home, they would face it as a team. Finally, after days of travel, they reached the healer's home, a small, unassuming hut at the edge of a vast, sacred forest. The healer, a tall, imposing figure, greeted them with a calm, knowing smile. "I have been expecting you," the healer said. "You seek to restore what was lost, but are you prepared for what you might find?" Obiora and Chidubem exchanged a glance, their resolve firm. "We are," Obiora replied, her voice steady. The healer nodded and gestured for them to enter the hut, where the ritual would begin. Inside the healer's hut, the air was thick with incense and the sound of soft chanting. The healer prepared a mixture of herbs and oils, instructing Obiora and Chidubem to sit together in the center of the room. "This ritual will bring forth your deepest memories and emotions," the healer explained. "It will not be easy, and you may face things you have long buried, but it is the only way to truly heal." Obiora and Chidubem nodded, bracing themselves for what was to come. The healer began the ritual, chanting in a language they didn't understand, as the room filled with a strange, almost tangible energy. As the ritual progressed, Obiora began to feel a deep stirring within her. Memories she had long forgotten resurfaced, some painful, others joyful. She saw her past life, her love for Chidubem, and the moment she had lost her emotions. Tears streamed down her face as she relived the pain, but alongside it, she also felt the love she had once known. Chidubem, too, was overwhelmed with emotion, seeing the depth of Obiora's love for him before the curse. When the ritual finally ended, they both sat in silence, holding each other, processing the intense experience. When they finally emerged from the hut, the sun was setting, casting a warm, golden light over the forest. Obiora felt different, lighter, freer. Though she hadn't fully regained her lost emotions, she no longer felt the weight of the past. Instead, she felt a new sense of hope and possibility. Chidubem looked at her with a mixture of love and awe. "Whatever happens now, we'll face it together," he said, taking her hand. Obiora smiled, a genuine smile, and nodded. They began the journey back to the village, ready to start anew. The journey back to the village was filled with quiet moments of reflection. Obiora and Chidubem walked hand in hand, feeling closer than they had in a long time. The ritual had not only brought back some of Obiora's lost emotions, but it had also strengthened their bond. They spoke of their future, raising Amina together, and creating new memory. Obiora realized that love wasn't just about the feelings she had lost, but about the choices she made every day. She chose to love Chidubem and Amina, and that choice was powerful. When they finally returned to the village, Amina ran to them with open arms. Obiora scooped her up, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. The village welcomed them back with open arms, curious to hear about their journey. Obiora and Chidubem shared their story, and the villagers listened with awe and admiration. Obiora's courage and strength inspired them all. That night, as they sat together in their home, Obiora felt a deep sense of peace. She knew that her journey was far from over, but she was no longer afraid. She had her family, and with them she could face anything. Life in the village returned to its normal rhythm. But for Obiora, everything felt different. She no longer felt the heavy burden of her past. Her love for Chidubem and Amina grew stronger with each passing day. She dedicated herself to her family and to the village, helping those in need and sharing the wisdom she had gained on her journey. The villagers often came to her for advice, and she became known not just for her kindness, but for her strength and resilience. Obiora had found her place, and she was finally at peace. As the years passed, Amina grew into a strong and intelligent young woman. She looked up to Obiora and Chidubem, who had raised her with love and care. Amina often wondered about her own past and where she came from, but she knew that no matter what, Obiora and Chidubem were her true family. One day, as she sat with Obiora under the shade of a large tree, Amina asked, "You think I'll ever find out where I came from?" Obiora smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "You are where you belong, Amina. Past is important, but it's the present and future that truly matter." Amina's question stayed with Obiora, and she found herself thinking more about the past. She knew that Amina's curiosity was natural, and she didn't want to hide anything from her. But she also knew that the past could be painful, and she wanted to protect Amina from that pain. Obiora decided to speak with Chidubem about it. "Amina is starting to ask about her past," he said one evening. "I want to be honest with her, but I also want to protect her." Chidubem nodded, understanding the delicate balance they needed to strike. "We'll tell her the truth, but we'll also remind her she is loved and belongs with us." When the time came, Obiora and Chidubem sat down with Amina to tell her about her past. They explained how they had found her and how much she had brought into their lives. Amina listened quietly, absorbing the information. "I may not know where I came from, but I know where I belong," Amina said, her voice steady. "You are my family, and that's all that matters to me." Obiora felt a wave of relief and pride wash over her. Amina had grown into a wise and compassionate young woman, and Obiora knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. As the seasons changed, so did the village. New challenges arose, and the villagers looked to Obiora for guidance. She led with wisdom and compassion, always putting the needs of others before her own. Chidubem stood by her side, offering his strength and support. Together, they faced droughts, conflicts, and other hardships, always finding a way to bring the village together. Amina, too, played her part, helping those in need and learning from her parents' example. The village thrived under their leadership, and Obiora felt a deep sense of fulfillment. One day, a traveler from a distant land arrived in the village, bringing news of a great opportunity. There is a new settlement being built, and they need leaders to help guide its growth, the traveler explained. The village elders discussed the opportunity, and many looked to Obiora and Chidubem, knowing that they had the skills and wisdom to take on such a role. Obiora and Chidubem discussed it privately, considering the impact it would have on their family and the village. We've built a life here, but perhaps it's time to explore new horizons, Obiora said thoughtfully. After much discussion, Obiora and Chidubem decided to visit the new settlement and see it for themselves. They left Amina in the care of the village elders, who promised to look after her until they returned. As they journeyed to the settlement, Obiora felt a mix of excitement and uncertainty. The settlement was unlike anything they had ever seen, bustling with activity, filled with people from different lands and cultures. Obiora and Chidubem were welcomed warmly, and they were quickly impressed by the spirit of cooperation and innovation that filled the air. During their visit, Obiora and Chidubem were asked to share their experiences and ideas with the settlement's leaders. They spoke of their time in the village, challenges they had faced, and the lessons they had learned. Leaders were impressed with their wisdom and invited them to stay, help guide the settlement's growth. Obiora and Chidubem were honored by the offer, but they knew they needed to think carefully about what was best for their family. This is a great opportunity, Chidubem said, but we must also consider what we would be leaving behind. Obiora and Chidubem spent several days in the settlement, getting to know the people and learning about their vision for the future. They were impressed by the sense of unity and progress, but they also missed the familiarity of their village and the people they had come to love. As they walked through the settlement one evening, Chidubem asked, "Do you think we could make a life here?" Obiora thought for a moment before replying, "We could, but we must also remember where we come from. Our roots are important, and so is our family. We must find a way to balance both." As their time in the settlement came to an end, Obiora and Chidubem made their decision. They would return to their village, but they would keep the connection, the settlement alive. They offered to help the settlement from afar, sharing their knowledge and wisdom, while remaining rooted in their village. The settlement leaders were grateful for their offer and promised to stay in touch. As Obiora and Chidubem prepared to leave, they felt a sense of peace, knowing that they had made the right choice for their family. When Obiora and Chidubem returned to the village, they were greeted with open arms by the villagers and Amina. Life quickly returned to normal, but there was a new sense of purpose in the air. Obiora and Chidubem shared what they had learned from the settlement, and the village began to adopt some of the ideas and practices that had impressed them. The village thrived, blending tradition with innovation, and Obiora felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She knew that they had found the right balance, and she was grateful for the journey that had led them here. The years passed, and the village continued to flourish under Obiora and Chidubem's guidance. Amina grew into a strong and capable leader in her own right, and the villagers often turned to her for advice and support. Obiora watched with pride as Amina took on more responsibilities, knowing that the village's future was in good hands. One day, as they sat together by the river, Obiora said to Amina, "You have become everything I hoped you would be. The village is lucky to have you." Amina smiled and replied, "I learned from the best." As Amina took on more leadership in the village, Obiora found herself with more time to reflect on her journey. She thought about the challenges she had faced, the love she had found, and the wisdom she had gained. She realized that while her life had not been easy, it had been full of meaning and purpose. She had built a life filled with love and community, and she had passed on her knowledge to the next generation. Obiora felt at peace, knowing that she had fulfilled her role and that the village would continue to thrive long after she was gone. One evening, as the village gathered for a celebration, Obiora and Chidubem sat together, watching the joyful scene unfold. Amina was at the center of the festivities, leading the villagers in song and dance. Obiora felt a deep sense of pride and contentment, knowing that the village was in good hands. As the night went on, Obiora and Chidubem reflected on their journey together. The love they had found, the challenges they had faced, and the life they had built. "We've come a long way," Obiora said softly, "and I wouldn't change a thing." Chidubem nodded, his heart full. As the celebration continued, Obiora felt a sense of peace settle over. She knew that her journey was coming to an end, but she was not afraid. She had lived a full and meaningful life, surrounded by love and community. She had faced challenges and overcome them, and she had found happiness in the small, everyday moments. Obiora took Chidubem's hand and squeezed it gently, feeling his warmth and love. "I am grateful for every moment," she whispered, "and for you." Chidubem smiled, his eyes filled with tears. "And I am grateful for you, Obiora, always." In the days that followed, Obiora felt her strength slowly fading. She knew that her time was near, but she was at peace with it. She spent her final days surrounded by her loved one, sharing stories, laughter, and wisdom. The villagers came to visit, each expressing their gratitude for all that Obiora had done for them. Amina stayed by her side, holding her hand and listening to her every word. "You have a strong heart, Amina," Obiora said softly. "Lead with love, and the village will thrive." Amina nodded, tears in her eyes, knowing that she would carry her mother's legacy forward. On a quiet morning, as the sun began to rise, Obiora took her last breath. She passed away peacefully, surrounded by her family and the village she had loved so dearly. The villagers mourned her loss, but they also celebrated her life, remembering the wisdom, strength, and kindness she had shared with them. Amina, though heartbroken, knew that her mother's spirit would always be with her. She vowed to lead the village with the same love and compassion that Obiora had shown. As the sun rose higher in the sky, a new day began, and with it, a new chapter for the village. The days after Obiora's passing were filled with mourning, but also with a sense of renewal. The village held a ceremony to honor her memory, celebrating her life and the impact she had on their community. Amina and Chidubem led the ceremony, sharing stories of Obiora's wisdom, courage, and love. The villagers joined together in song and dance, paying tribute to the woman who had given so much to them. As they sang, Amina felt a deep connection to her mother's spirit, knowing that Obiora's legacy would live on, her and the village. As the years passed, Amina grew into her role as the village leader, guided by the wisdom her mother had passed on to her. The village thrived under her leadership, blending tradition with new ideas and practices. Amina often thought of Obiora, feeling her mother's presence in the decisions she made and the love she shared with the villagers. She knew that her mother's spirit lived on in the village, in the values she had instilled, and in the hearts of those who had known her. Amina felt a deep sense of responsibility, but also of pride, knowing that she was continuing her mother's legacy. Amina's leadership brought prosperity to the village, but she often found herself facing challenges that tested her resolve. Each time she drew strength from the memories of her mother, Obiora, and the lessons she had learned. Amina believed in leading with compassion and wisdom, but she also knew when to stand firm. One day, when a dispute arose between two families in the village, Amina mediated with fairness and empathy, ensuring that both sides felt heard and respected. The villagers admired her ability to maintain peace and harmony, just as her mother had done. One evening, as Amina walked through the village, she noticed a young girl sitting alone by the river, much like she had done in her youth. The girl seemed lost in thought, her expression a mix of sadness and uncertainty. Amina approached her gently and asked what was troubling her. The girl hesitated before sharing her worries about fitting in, finding her place in the village. Amina listened carefully and offered words of encouragement, sharing her own experiences of doubt and growth. The girl's eyes brightened as she realized she wasn't alone in her struggles. As time went on, Amina became known not only as a leader but also as a mentor to the younger generation. She made it her mission to nurture the potential in every child, believing that they were the future of the village. Amina started organizing gatherings where she shared stories of the village's history, the values her mother had taught her, and the importance of unity. The children were captivated by her tales and inspired by her wisdom. Through these gatherings, Amina ensured that the spirit of the village and the legacy of her mother continued to thrive. The seasons changed, and with each passing year, the village grew stronger under Amina's guidance. However, a severe drought one year threatened the crops and the livelihood of the villager. Amina knew she had to act quickly to prevent disaster. She gathered the elders and the younger members of the village, seeking their counsel and brainstorming solutions. Together, they implemented water-saving techniques and rationed the remaining supplies. Amina led by example, working tirelessly alongside the villagers to ensure everyone had enough to survive. The drought was a difficult time, but the village emerged from it more united than ever. The drought had left its mark on the village, but it had also brought the people closer together. Amina realized that the challenges they faced strengthened their bond as a community. She decided to hold a festival to celebrate their resilience and to honor the traditions that had sustained them through difficult. The festival was a vibrant display of music, dance, and storytelling, with villagers dressed in their finest traditional attire. As the night wore on, Amina felt a deep sense of pride in her people and in the legacy of her mother, continued to guide her. As the festival continued, an elderly woman approached Amina with a gift, a beautifully woven shawl that had belonged to her mother, Obiora. The woman explained that Obiora had given it to her during a time of need, and now she wanted to return it to Amina as a symbol of gratitude and respect. Amina accepted the gift with tears in her eyes, feeling the weight of her mother's legacy wrapped around her shoulders. She wore the shawl for the remainder of the festival, feeling her mother's presence with her, guiding her as she led the village. The shawl became a treasured possession for Amina, a constant reminder of her mother's strength and wisdom. Whenever she faced a difficult decision, she would wrap herself in the shawl, feeling comforted by the connection to Obiora. One day, as she stood by the river, Amina found herself contemplating the future of the village. She knew that change was inevitable, but she also believed in the importance of preserving their traditions. Amina decided to call a village meeting to discuss the future, seeking the input of both the elders and the younger generation. At the village meeting, Amina spoke openly about the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. She emphasized the importance of balancing tradition with progress, encouraging the villagers to embrace new ideas while honoring their heritage. The discussion was lively, many voices contributing to the conversation. Some elders were hesitant about change, but Amina reassured them that their traditions would always be respected. By the end of the meeting, there was a sense of optimism and unity, with everyone agreeing to work together to ensure the village's continued prosperity. The village began to implement the ideas discussed at the meeting, with Amina leading the way. They introduced new agricultural techniques to improve crop yields, built a community center for gatherings and education, and established a market where villagers could trade goods. Amina ensured that these changes were made with respect for their traditions, incorporating elements of their cultural heritage into each new development. The village flourished, becoming a model of how tradition and progress could coexist harmoniously. Amina felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that she was honoring her mother's legacy, while paving the way for each. One day, a traveler arrived in the village, bringing news from distant land. He spoke of new inventions and ideas that were transforming other villages and towns. The villagers listened with curiosity, eager to learn about the world beyond their home. Amina welcomed the traveler and invited him to stay for a while, hoping to learn from his experiences. She knew that the knowledge he shared could help the village continue to grow and adapt to changing times. Amina also saw an opportunity to share their own traditions with the traveler, showcasing the unique culture of their village. As the traveler spent time in the village, he was impressed by the way Amina had integrated tradition with progress. He marveled at the wisdom she displayed in her leadership and the unity of the villagers. The traveler shared stories of his own village, where rapid changes had led to a loss of cultural identity. Amina listened carefully, understanding the importance of maintaining a balance. She knew that while change was necessary, it should never come at the cost of losing their roots. The traveler's visit reinforced her commitment to preserving their traditions while embracing the future. The traveler's departure was met with gratitude and fond farewells from the villagers. Amina presented him with a gift, a beautifully crafted piece of jewelry that symbolized the village's heritage. The traveler promised to return one day and share more stories from his journeys. As he left, Amina felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing that their village had left a lasting impression on him. She also felt inspired by the traveler's stories, realizing that there was always more to learn and discover. Amina continued to lead the village with a renewed sense of purpose, ever mindful of the lessons she had learned. As time passed, Amina's reputation as a wise and compassionate leader spread beyond the village. People from neighboring villages began to seek her counsel, and she became known as a healer of both hearts and minds. Amina took this responsibility seriously, always striving to offer advice that was rooted in the values her mother had taught her. She was careful to listen more than she spoke, believing that understanding others was the key to helping them. Amina's wisdom brought peace and reconciliation to many, further solidifying her role as a leader and healer. One day, a young woman from a distant village arrived, seeking Amina's help. She had heard of Amina's wisdom and came with a heavy heart, burdened by the loss of her family and the responsibilities she now faced. Amina welcomed her with open arms, offering her a place to stay and the comfort of the village. As the days passed, the young woman began to heal, finding solace in Amina's words and the support of the villagers. She realized that she was not alone in her struggles, and that there was strength in community. The young woman eventually decided to stay in the village, finding a new sense of purpose and belonging. Amina helped her integrate into the community, encouraging her to share her own skills and knowledge. The young woman became a valuable member of the village, contributing to its growth and prosperity. She often reflected on how Amina had helped her transform her life, and she made it her mission to pay it forward by helping others who were in need. The village, under Amina's leadership, continued to thrive as a place of healing, growth, and unity. Amina's influence continued to grow. She remained humble, always giving credit to the teachings of her mother, Obiora. She knew that she was merely a steward of the wisdom that had been passed down to her, and she took her role seriously. Amina often visited the place where her mother had been laid to rest, seeking guidance and reflecting on the journey they had shared. It was during one of these visits that Amina felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that she had honored her mother's legacy and that the village would continue to prosper long after she was gone. As the years went by, Amina's hair began to gray, and the lines of age appeared on her face, but her spirit remained as strong as ever. She continued to lead the village with wisdom and compassion, always thinking of the future. Amina knew that it was time to start preparing the next generation to take over the responsibilities of leadership. She began mentoring a group of young villagers, teaching them the values and lessons that had guided her. Amina was confident that they would carry on the legacy of the village and lead with the same love and dedication she had. One evening, as Amina sat by the fire, surrounded by the young villagers she had been mentoring, she shared with them the story of her mother, Obiora. She spoke of her mother's strength, wisdom, and the sacrifices she had made for the village. The young villagers listened in awe, realizing the depth of the legacy they were a part of. Amina's eyes shone with pride as she saw the same fire of determination in their eyes that had driven her all these years. She knew that they would continue to honor her mother's memory and lead the village with the same spirit. The day came when Amina knew it was time to step down as the leader of the village. She gathered the villagers together and announced her decision, expressing her confidence in the new generation to lead. The villagers were emotional, but they understood that it was the natural course of life. They honored Amina with a ceremony, thanking her for her years of service and the love she had poured into the village. Amina felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had done her best to serve her people. She looked forward to the future, knowing that the village was in good hands. After stepping down from her role as leader, Amina found peace in the simple joys of daily life. She spent her days tending to her garden, weaving baskets, and sharing stories with the children of the village. Amina felt content knowing that she had given her all to the village, and that it would continue to thrive without her leadership. The villagers still sought her advice from time to time, and she was happy to offer her wisdom when needed. Amina knew that her legacy would live on through the people she had mentored and the lives she had touched. One afternoon, as Amina sat weaving a basket, a young woman approached her, seeking advice on a difficult decision she had to make. Amina listened carefully, her hands never pausing in their work. She offered the young woman guidance, drawing from her own experiences and the wisdom her mother had imparted to her. The young woman left feeling more confident and reassured. Amina smiled to herself, grateful that she could still be of service to the people she loved. She realized that even though she was no longer the leader, her role as a guide and mentor would continue for as long as she lived. Amina's days were filled with moments of reflection and gratitude. She often thought about her mother, Obiora, and the journey they had shared. Amina knew that everything she had achieved was a result of the foundation her mother had laid. She felt a deep connection to her mother, knowing that she had honored her legacy and passed on her teachings to the next generation. As Amina watched the village continue to prosper, she felt at peace, knowing that her mother's spirit lived on in every corner of the village. The seasons continued to change, and with each passing year, Amina grew older. The village had flourished under her guidance, and the new leaders she had mentored were leading with the same wisdom and compassion she had taught them. Amina's body grew weaker, but her spirit remained strong. She knew that her time was nearing its end, and she felt a sense of calm acceptance. Amina spent her days surrounded by the love of her people, knowing that she had fulfilled her purpose. She found comfort in the knowledge that the village would continue to thrive, guided by the principles she had lived by. As Amina's final days approached, the village gathered to honor her and celebrate her life. They held a special ceremony, sharing stories of how Amina had touched their lives and expressing their gratitude for her years of service. Amina, though weak, attended the ceremony, her heart filled with love for her. She spoke a few words, thanking the villagers for their support, and reminding them to always stay true to their values. The ceremony was a beautiful tribute to Amina's life, filled with music, dance, and the warmth of a community that had been shaped by her guidance. The night after the ceremony, Amina passed away peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by the people who loved her. The village mourned her loss deeply, but they also celebrated the incredible life she had lived. Amina's legacy was woven into the very fabric of the village. Her spirit lived on in the hearts of those she had touched. The villagers held a grand funeral, honoring Amina with the same love and respect she had shown them throughout her life. They knew that while Amina was no longer with them, her influence would continue to guide the village for generations to come. In the years that followed, the village continued to thrive, guided by the teachings and values that Amina had instilled in them. The young leaders she had mentored took up the mantle of leadership, ensuring that the village remained strong and united. They often spoke of Amina and her mother, Obiora, keeping their memories alive through stories and tradition. The village had become a place where the past and future coexisted in harmony, a testament to the enduring power of love, wisdom, and community. Amina's name was spoken with reverence, a symbol of the strength and resilience of their people. One day, a storyteller arrived in the village, drawn by the tales of Amina and her mother, Obiora. The storyteller had traveled far and wide, collecting stories of wisdom and courage. He asked the villagers to share the story of Amina and Obiora, so that he could carry it with him on his journeys and share it with the world. The villagers gathered around, eager to tell the tale that had shaped their lives. As they spoke, the storyteller listened with rapt attention, knowing that he had found a story worth telling, a story of love, legacy, and the power of community. The storyteller left the village with a heart full of gratitude and a mind full of the wisdom he had learned. As he traveled to distant lands, he shared the story of Amina and Obiora, inspiring others with the tale of a village that had thrived through love, wisdom, and unity. The story spread far and wide, touching the hearts of all who heard it. Amina and Obiora's legacy lived on, not just in the village, but in the hearts of people around the world. The village continued to prosper, knowing that their story had become a beacon of hope and strength for others. Back in the village, the people continued to live by the principles that Amina and Obiora had taught them. They knew that their strength came from their unity, their wisdom from their traditions, and their future from their willingness to embrace change while honoring the past. The village had become a symbol of what was possible when people came together with love, respect, and a shared vision. And so the story of Amina and Obiora, of a mother and daughter who had led with their hearts, lived on in the village, a timeless tale of courage, wisdom, and the enduring power of community. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please like the video, comment what you learned from the ball.